We all know no toon can resist a good spoiler. Please! No spoilers, I'm begging you.
Welcome to Diabolical, the show where four long-suffering friends dissect films most dastardly schemes, then try to improve them. I'm your host, Craig, and this week's movie is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So, don't be bad, just be drawn that way, and let's get diabolical. As always, I'm joined by our panel of peril. Please introduce yourselves and tell us, aside from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, what's your favourite piece of live-action/animation hybrid media?
Hi, I'm Adam, and my favourite piece of hybrid/animation media is from the same year as Roger Rabbit, which is Paula Abdul's Opposites Attract video, where she is sweet-talking a cat.
If we'd been playing the Mr. and Mrs. game, that's what I would have guessed. I'll take 2 steps forward, you take 2 steps back. That's why I specifically said media and not just movies, because I was hoping that you would pick that. Ben?
Hello, I'm Ben. And at first, this seemed like a really easy task compared to some of them. But as I thought about it, it became harder and harder.
Ooh.
And I've got 3. Will you allow me to say them all?
Yes.
The first one is the SpongeBob movie, where SpongeBob is riding David Hasselhoff. Second one is the video for Take On Me by Aha.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And then the final one is a very nostalgic movie for me. I absolutely love it, and I have done since I was a child. Bedknobs and Broomsticks with Angela Lansbury.
I had that on my list.
Not for the first time. I thought you were going to say Pete's Dragon, and I was wrong again.
I don't think I've ever seen it all the way through.
Have I misremembered you liking Pete's Dragon? For some reason, I thought you liked
Yeah.
It was me that liked Pete's Dragon.
Okay. And Gaz, is yours Pete's Dragon?
Sorry, can I just shoehorn in a little
You had 3?
It's a little Angela Lansbury fact that I've been sitting on for ages.
Listen.
Oh, well, if it's an Angela Lansbury fact, feel free.
Angela Lansbury fact!
Did you know Lansbury playing Jessica Fletcher, as we all know in Murder, She Wrote?
Sorry, I've not heard that show.
But do you know there was a crossover episode with Magnum P.I. where Jessica Fletcher was in Magnum P.I.?
Jesus.
That's incredible.
Speaking of Magnum P.I., one of the latest animation hybrid films is the new Chip and Dale film, which is on Disney+.
Right.
And someone online pointed something out, which is that Chip and Dale, one is dressed as Magnum P.I. and one is dressed as Indiana Jones, which are both kind of Tom Selleck, sort of.
Yeah, could have been. In another universe. Yeah.
I never knew that. Cut that if you want. I don't mind.
Yeah.
We'll see. Is that your favourite piece of live-action/animation hybrid media?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm Gaz, and my favourite piece of live-action/animation hybrid media, after a hasty Google, because I forgot what we were doing, I'm saying Mary Poppins Returns.
Okay.
It slipped my mind, I'm afraid. I do like Mary Poppins Returns, though. It's very good.
It is very good.
Yeah.
I really loved it as well. Yeah, The Only Way From Here is Up is a particular highlight, I would say.
As for me, mine is a slight cheat, but my favourite live-action/animation hybrid movie is Osmosis Jones, and it's a slight cheat because the animated sequences don't play at the same time as the live-action sequences. So you get Bill Murray eating the food, and then it goes inside his mouth, and then his mouth becomes the animated universe. In a similar vein, another brilliant example of that kind of movie is Enchanted. I don't know if you've seen that with Amy Adams. It's so good. But again, you know, the live action and animated sequences don't overlap necessarily. So you've already said Mary Poppins Returns, but the first Mary Poppins should get an honourable mention there because the sequences in that are really good too.
Speaking of slight cheats, when you first told us what you were going to be asking us, my initial thought was Kill Bill for the Orenishi origin sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So no one said Space Jam 2? Is there a particular reason for that?
I've got Space Jam written down.
I haven't seen the second one, and I've heard it's terrible. But
I haven't seen it either.
The first one wasn't that good, was it, really?
Just to go back to Chip and Dale, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the fella who voiced Roger Rabbit also does a voice in Chip and Dale.
Charles Fleischer is
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. He's in fact, he plays Roger Rabbit in
Oh yeah, of course
said
it does.
movie.
What a
It's got
coincidence.
so many characters in it. It's hard to remember who's in it.
Later, they'll be competing for the title of this week's Most Diabolical. But first, let's take a closer look at this week's movie, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? 1988's Who Framed Roger Rabbit was a huge technical achievement in the world of live-action animation hybrids and an unprecedented crossover of beloved Walt Disney and Warner Brothers animated characters. Disney had taken baby steps into the genre decades prior, with scenes in live-action favourites such as Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Mary Poppins, and Pete's Dragon doing a passable job of depicting animated characters sharing the screen with human actors, building on the promise of 1944's The Three Caballeros, which saw Donald Duck share the screen with Mexican star of radio and screen Dora Luz. However, this was the first attempt at combining live action with animation for every scene for a feature-length film, and thanks to meticulous planning and clever production, the first to truly sell the idea that animated characters had a solid presence in the real world and could fully interact with their environment and human co-stars. With an estimated budget of around $70 million, this was the most expensive production of the 80s. Due to the huge team required to complete the vision, it also featured the longest credits sequence of the decade. There you go.
Ooh.
There you go.
You can watch those credits on Disney if you want. Just watch them. Also in 1988, Disney's black sheep Tim Burton was blending stop-motion animation with live-action for key sequences in Beetlejuice. Roger Rabbit executive producer Steven Spielberg was supporting traditional animation further as a producer on Don Bluth's beloved The Land Before Time. The asking price was too high for Spielberg's dream casting pick for Eddie Valiant, Harrison Ford, who appeared instead in Roman Polanski's Frantic, while second choice Chevy Chase wasn't interested, preferring to appear in the reputedly not very funny Funny Farm, while third choice Bill Murray, who missed the phone call and therefore the opportunity to play Eddie Valiant, got the consolation prize for starring in Christmas favourite Scrooged. Eddie Murphy, who was also offered the role prior to Hoskins, reportedly didn't get the concept and passed on the offer, instead giving us the McDowells of Eddie Murphy comedies, Coming to America prequel, Coming to America. In world events, NASA scientist James Hansen testified to the US Senate on man-made global warming, birthing a whole new era of dumbass denial, while later in the year, TAT-8, the first transatlantic fibre optic cable, improved the connection between the American and European internet, just in time for the Morris worm, the first malware to be distributed via the internet, to be launched from MIT in a weird marketing ploy that MIT hoped would lead the public to assume its Cornell-educated creator Robert Tappan Morris had studied at MIT. He hadn't. So, what did you think of 1988?
Loved it.
I thought it was all right, yeah.
Cracking year.
Roger Rabbit was the second highest grossing film of the year. Does anyone know what the highest grossing film of the year was?
No, but I suspect you're going to tell us.
Was it Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring?
1988.
Can we have a clue, please?
Definitely 1988.
Oh, Rain Man.
Yes, it was Rain Man.
Probably cost significantly less to make than Roger Rabbit as well.
I'd have thought so. Although I don't know how much Tom Cruise's teeth cost.
And all the gambling debts they incurred while filming.
I was going to say about when you said about the pick for the role of Valiant. I did my research and it said Bill Murray was the pick, and both of Spielberg and Zemeckis the first pick. And when he obviously missed the chance, and he really, really, really wanted to take it, and he was in a public place when he found out it went to Bob Hoskins, and apparently he literally screamed out loud, just went, Hoskins!
That was after they'd already offered it to Harrison Ford, and he apparently priced himself out of it. He was their first choice. But yeah, Bill Murray was one of their top choices. Well, it's pretty well known that he doesn't speak to people. He's got like a special phone number that he doesn't answer, and he gets voicemail. Doesn't deal with agents or anything like that. So yeah, he just missed that particular voicemail. By the time he heard about it, it was too late.
It would have been a very different film.
Yeah. Well, on that, since we're talking about it already, we could talk about some of the other people who were considered for the role, because there's quite a number of them, and some of them are pretty surprising. So, Kurt Russell, Dan Aykroyd, Robin Williams, that's kind of an obvious one, Robert Redford, Jack Nicholson, which might have an interesting link in some different trivia, Sylvester Stallone, Wallace Shawn, if you know who he is. Yeah, Stallone, yeah. Ed Harris, Charles Grodin, Michael Keaton, Dudley Moore, Michael Biehn, Gene Hackman.
Is Michael Keaton Billy Crystal? I forget.
Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, Leslie Nielsen, Steve Martin,
Jesus Christ.
and Rowan Atkinson
Bloody
were all
hell.
considered for the role.
Why is their shopping list so long?
It says they were all considered, but you don't know how much, right?
And who's saying it?
Well, yeah, IMDb.
The incorrect movie database.
Satire.
Yeah, Wikipedia.
If they could pick one of them and reshoot the movie, go back in time, I'd choose Robin Williams.
He would have been not a straight man to Roger, and it wouldn't have worked.
No, I think he can play it good, but then the comedy elements and stuff like that, you'd need somebody like him to really pull it off.
You don't, because Bob Hoskins did pull it off.
Yeah.
Bob Hoskins was excellent.
He did, but I just would like to see the movie with Robin Williams as well.
I think you're alone, and I think that will bear out if people respond to this.
Okay.
You're wrong, and you're a grotesquely ugly freak.
So, in some other casting nearlies, Christopher Lee was considered for Doom, but he turned it down. John Cleese expressed interest in the role, but they turned him down. They said he wasn't scary enough.
Good.
Peter O'Toole, F. Murray Abraham, Roddy McDowall, and Sting were all considered.
Do you know who did a screen test for Doom and they said he was too scary?
Christopher Lee.
Vincent Price.
Nope. Tim Curry.
Mike Tyson. Tim Curry.
Oh, Tim Curry.
Tim Curry, yeah.
Yeah, they turned him down because they said he was too scary.
All right, time for a quick overview of the film then. Who Framed Roger Rabbit buddies up the eponymous bunny with embittered toon-phobic private detective Eddie Valiant as the pair attempt to dodge the tenacious Judge Doom and clear Roger of suspicion for the murder of Toontown owner Marvin Acme, who Valiant had previously photographed in a compromising position with Roger's wife, voluptuous femme fatale Jessica Rabbit. So, panel of peril, what did you think of the movie?
I love it. I think it's basically a perfect film, and it, for me, talking about the casting quite extensively there, it all hangs on Bob Hoskins. I think he's absolutely incredible. Just from a purely technical standpoint, if you've seen how they shot the film, it was a rehearsal with something there for him to get his eyeline on, and then there's nothing there for the take.
Yeah.
And it feels as though there is something genuinely there.
Every time.
Yeah. So purely from that point, it's unreal. He's also got real comedy chops.
Yeah.
One of my favourite lines is when he hops off the red car, and it's just a throwaway line. He just says, "Thanks for the smokes, kids." Just throwaway little bit that makes me laugh every time.
Yeah, he has a few of those lines, and he's just great. And I think even his accent, he nails it.
Yeah,
he doesn't let it drop. He's consistent all the way through. Yeah, I've got, this might be his finest moment, and I love him in Hook as Smee, but I think this might be his finest moment.
I'm not sure about his accent. It's not an LA accent, and he does a few too many of those hard R's that English people do when they're doing an American accent.
It's not supposed to be LA.
It's supposed to be Brooklyn, isn't it?
I think it's more sort of a gruff film noir accent, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's this film noir accent, which a lot of them are kind of New Yorky, so it's kind of more of an East Coast accent. But I thought it was great.
Nevertheless, it is set in LA.
Yeah.
The thing that jumped out for me, I haven't seen it for, I can't remember. I probably last watched it with you guys years and years ago, and I hadn't seen it, and I was like, it's probably not going to stand the test of time. But as soon as it started, and then they go outside of the studio, and there's the costumes and the look of 1940s LA and stuff, and I was like, holy shit, this looks absolutely amazing. Especially it's on Disney Plus, it's on 4K, and it's looks unbelievable.
Yeah, they used that budget very well, high as it was.
But then with the research as well, you read about how the animators laboured over doing, like, you know, when he goes into that back room and then there's that light swinging and stuff in the back room of the bar. He said that they had to animate all the shadows correctly for that and stuff like it. And I was just like, what on earth? And it was like 326 animators working full time on the movie, and it's when I did my research a bit before I watched the movie. So when I watched it, I really sort of took in way more than just the visual aspect of it and the sound and everything. It was like the work behind it and stuff.
In the animation world, they call it bumping the lamp because of that scene, and it just means to go above and beyond to make the animation believable and have depth and weight.
It was so good. I think that is for live action and animation crossover. I think that's the high watermark, and I don't think it's been surpassed yet, to be honest.
Oh, for sure.
But Gaz is right. Bob Hoskins is key to that. He takes it seriously, but like you say, he's great at the comedy, and not just the vocal comedy, but the slapstick comedy as well. His physicality all the way through, he sells the believability of this completely.
The thing that really brings the character to life, though, like you say, is he takes it seriously. And when he's looking through the photos, first of Dolores, and then it becomes his brother, and you just see the lips start to quiver and the eyes drop.
Yeah,
and that's proper fucking acting. That is. It's so subtle and on the money. I love Bob Hoskins. He was the man.
As you've been doing your research, you might already know this, but apparently it took a little toll on his mental health. He didn't make another movie for a year after, and because he was so committed to visualizing the animated characters being in the space with him, he started to hallucinate them offset. Apparently he saw one of the weasels in a woman's hair while he was talking to her.
Jesus.
Felt like he needed a break. So hats off to Hoskins.
I'm quite a fan of noir in general. I've read quite a few books, and I like some of the old films, and I think this does such a great job in emulating that feel. You got it almost feels, except for the cartoon aspect of it, but it almost feels like a Raymond Chandler novel. You've got these kind of this complex plot. You've got
the femme fatale,
the characters double crossing each other, the secrets that kind of unravel as we go through. Yeah, I thought it was if Bob Hoskins was playing Philip Marlowe, you would have believed it. It was amazing.
Even stylistically, Hoskins' first shot in the film, where it's a fairly big close-up, half of his face is in shadow, which is a very film noir way of shooting, isn't it?
Yeah, and the animation copies that as well. The chiaroscuro, the hard contrast between shadow and light, and not only does that make these creatures more believable, like they're in the world, but it also evokes that film noir feel. So double win.
And as you mentioned the start there, it was such a great opening because it starts with this cartoon and you're kind of thinking, what's going on here? And then there's a cut, and suddenly you see the whole world around it, and it's like, wow.
Yeah. How great is that cartoon, by the way? It looks slick and modern in terms of production value, but also it perfectly emulates like my memory of watching those Looney Tunes. If I went back and watched them now, the quality isn't there. But in my head, that's how I remember them looking and feeling. It's perfect.
Yeah.
My favourite sequence, I think, is when they went into the club, and then it's like a piano duel between Donald Duck and Daffy Duck, and I was just,
I love that.
I was just like this. I was honestly howling, and it's so good.
Straight away,
Speaking of you howling, one of the notes I made while I was watching it is
I knew you were going to say this.
Daffy Duck makes the same noise as Turner makes when you throw him in cold water. We were going to the cinema once, and you were on the famous old Colwyn spike jump, which you can jump into the ocean.
Yeah.
And I came to ask you if you wanted to come to the cinema, but you instead jumped into the ocean and made that perfect Daffy Duck noise.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it.
Well, the North Sea will do that to you.
It will. It'll make you make noises you never thought possible.
The practical effects are so good as well, like the rabbit-shaped hole in the window when he jumps out.
Love
and
that,
the set design, like the filing cabinet bed, really cool.
Yeah.
On the practical effects, my favourite was when Bob Hoskins' character Eddie was in the elevator with Droopy.
Oh yeah,
and he gets squished to the floor.
Yeah.
And they've got like the clothes spread out, and there's just his face popping through, obviously, but it looks perfect. It's so good.
I actually, the two down notes that I had on this, one of them is extremely minor, and I'm not actually sure if it's intentional. When Jessica is silhouetted behind the frosted glass of the detective agency door, it looks like the animation's unfinished. Like there's her movement isn't complete. I don't know if she's meant to be walking in slow motion, but it just doesn't look right. And then the other thing is that compared to the rest of the film, Toontown doesn't look quite as good to me. It just looks a lot cheaper than the rest, and he doesn't blend into that world as well as Roger does into his.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, it works better the other way around.
I don't know. Maybe that's perhaps intentional. I don't know.
Perhaps.
That's what I thought anyway, because it's
show that he's not of that world.
Yeah, that's it, and it goes from you've got that like that noir sort of setting of late 40s LA, and then you go from that, and it is such a departure that you get like I think it highlights.
I think that's the problem, is that the rest of it is noirish, and that he goes into this bright, over the top sunshine world.
That's it. Well, I think that's partially the point.
Because when he gets into the dark alley later on,
it blends much better, right?
Yeah,
totally. Just one more highlight, and this part made me laugh way more than I think it should have. Is the singing sword?
Yeah, it's all right.
It just cracked me up.
Frank Sinatra sword. Yeah.
Oh my god, I was crying. It's got a little jerry curls, and it's just like giving it big licks. I was laughing my head off.
Do you know about the screen tests? There's more than one, and they're both interesting in different ways. So, in 1983, they made a test reel, like a proof of concept, where Paul Rubens voices Roger. But then, closer to making the movie in '88, they did another test where Eddie Valiant is played by Joe Pantoliano.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Wow.
And they're both on YouTube, so you can watch them both. They're quite interesting.
Oh, I'm definitely going to watch that one. Yeah, I'll put that in the description as well.
The posters in Maroon's office are all available online, and they're quite cool. So the first ones are Roger Rabbit shorts, some of which you can watch on. I think they're on Disney Plus now. They were on some of the DVD and Blu-ray collections. So you've got like wartime propaganda stuff like Herman's Shermans, where baby Herman is in a tank and Roger is apparently Hitler, which is kind of odd. You've got Babes in Arms, where it's straightforward. Roger and Herman get drafted into the army. It looks very wholesome. Baby Buggy Blunder. You don't see much apart from it's the introduction of Jessica, so it's how they met, which is kind of cool.
Chasing him with a rolling pin.
Yeah.
As was the style of the time.
The horribly old-fashioned The Little Engine That Could, which is giving me bad flashbacks to Disney's version of Peter Pan. And then one more, which I've deliberately left till the end, because it's very interesting. Pistol Packing Possum doesn't feature Roger or Herman or Jessica. If you notice, Pistol Packing Possum has red eyes and a very long
and a large gun. Yeah.
So it is speculated that is Judge Doom. In the comic. Doom is revealed to be Baron von something villainous name, and he has a special toon ability to be able to morph into any shape he wants. So it's speculated that he has some beef with Maroon and maybe Roger from his time as the Pistol Packing Possum, which is kind of cool.
Very good.
Well, I never.
I started reading the book. It's really weird. The characters are not animated characters; they're comic strip characters. So, like from the newspapers. And when Roger speaks, speech bubbles come out of his head, and he seems to be made of paper. There's a mention of him not wanting to go too close to the window in case he dries out in the sun. Judge Doom was invented for the movie. In the book, the villain is a genie in a tea kettle.
Wait, was the book written first?
Yeah, it's called Who Censored Roger Rabbit?
Yeah, well.
So it's really different. But then the author, Gary K. Wolfe, he loved the movie so much that the subsequent books are much closer to the movie, in terms of tone. And he said that he was inspired by cereal adverts where the cereal mascots spoke to humans. That's where he got the idea from. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, you might remember there was a rumor that if you pause the movie just right, when Jessica spills out of the car, you can see that she's not wearing any underwear. And if you, like I did, when you got the DVD, tried to check, you'll know that's not true. Except it is.
It is.
If you've got the laser disc,
it is true. Yes.
it's still in
Well,
there.
the
and
VHS.
you can
The
see it.
VHS.
Yeah, try pausing the VHS though.
Yeah, well,
What's the it you can see?
She's not wearing any underwear.
but it's just
So-
skin-coloured paint.
Oh
that's
no,
all.
it's just
That's it.
skin. Yeah. And in later versions, they've painted it in white.
But then they
to
took
give the
it
appearance
out
that
again,
she
though,
is.
didn't they? Because they got
They took it
yeah,
out completely. Yeah.
because perverted animation fans decided that they wanted to write letters about it.
In an early draft of the movie, Jessica and Baby Herman were the villains.
Oh,
So that idea got dropped.
well,
quite
well.
So Baby Herman never, and I realise what I'm saying here, but never gets old. Every time,
My stogie!
always
Wow!
funny, always funny.
Yeah, he's
That's very good.
in a now also reanimated scene. He goes under a woman's skirt, and originally he had his finger up there, and then he was licking his lips.
Jesus.
So
Jesus
his
Christ.
finger's been removed now.
That's, one of my notes is this is the horniest PG rated film I think I've seen in some time, but it looks like they've even toned it back and it's still
Yeah, it
unbelievably
wouldn't
horny.
have been a PG if it got released now for sure.
No,
PG-13 at best. I'd say.
12A.
Charles Fleischer, who voiced Roger Rabbit, was very committed to the film as
Yeah.
well as Hoskins. He read all his lines on the set, often in a full Roger Rabbit costume. And staff at the studio on other productions vocalised the rumour that Roger Rabbit was going to look shit because they thought that was what he was going to look like.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Spoiler alert to people out there who haven't seen David Fincher's Zodiac, but it's strange watching Zodiac seeing Charles Fleischer at the end as the Zodiac killer in all likelihood. It's just you cannot get Roger Rabbit out of your head when you're seeing him
Especially
stalk
because
Jake Gyllenhaal.
He's so into movies, that character.
Yeah. Another one that I really, really love is in The Club when Eddie first arrives and the penguin comes to take his order and he says, "Whiskey on the rocks," and I mean ice. And then it comes and it has got rocks in it.
Yeah, so good.
That penguin is
on my
the
list.
penguin from Mary Poppins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
That's what he went on to
Mhm.
do. Well, right out of the gate, the first thing that I noted was the score by Alan Silvestri is incredible. He also scored Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, and Avengers. But straight from that, ba-ding-ding-ding, noir, perfect noir.
Yeah.
Sting opening. The music throughout is just incredible. So I wanted to mention that. Early favourite line of mine is Toon killed his brother, dropped the piano on his head. It's just such a perfect
The delivery
Toon
that's
thing to
great.
do.
It's on my list as well. Yeah.
That's part of what makes Hoskins' performance so great for me because it's such a ridiculous comedy death, but he sells the sorrow of it.
He does.
It also is it would be a horrible death as well, right? If you think about it,
I imagine so.
horrendous.
Marvin Acme gets the safe on
Yeah.
his head, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And you see his head's flat.
Yeah.
Did you see when they're wheeling him off on the trolley? You can see that like the head part goes down and the feet are up.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, and we said earlier that this doesn't feel like a film for kids, but when Doom gets steamrolled,
That's
he's
pretty horrid.
screaming.
It's terrifying. Yeah. It's the noise that
Yeah.
Christopher Lloyd
Yeah.
makes.
Yeah.
It's unnerving.
Speaking of Judge Doom, his intro is so great. You know, it's on the par with like a Darth Vader style intro when he puts the cane down on Bob's hand, and then you see him from below, and he's this big presence, and his teeth look like they're painted on with Tipex or something.
Yeah.
His chilling presence right away. Did you know that Kathleen Turner is uncredited for her performance?
What?
Yeah,
She's
in
amazing.
the credits, Jessica Rabbit is listed just by the name of the woman who sang the song. No mention of Kathleen Turner.
Wow.
Was that her choice?
She's great.
Presumably?
I don't know.
I didn't realize. Well, now I think about it. Robert Zemeckis did Romancing the Stone with her in, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Her and Michael Douglas, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good, fun movie.
And Jewel in the Nile.
Danny DeVito's in that.
Was he?
Yeah.
Betty Boop was voiced by the original voice actor Mae Questel, who played her throughout the 30s and went on to voice Olive Oil.
It's funny, that little cameo, because it's slightly sad, isn't it, that she's obsolete.
Yeah.
But she's like, I've still got it.
And his response to it is, you still got it. It's so genuine
so sweet.
and warm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That you believe he believes it, and so that saves it from being too depressing. Some of the scenes in Benny the Taxi feature an animated Eddie Valiant, which is I've never noticed. It's kind of seamless, right?
Didn't notice that.
And then my final piece of triv, which I'm sure everybody who's a fan of the movie knows and still is sad about to some extent to this day. A prequel with the working title Toon Platoon was considered, where Roger and several fellow Toons are drafted into the army during World War II, but it never got past pre-production because Spielberg had just made Schindler's List and didn't want to make Nazis sort of a comedy villain.
I was going to make a Schindler's List joke as well. That's dashed that.
Craig, come on.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit sees the lovable Toon framed for the murder of Marvin Acme after rumpled rummy gumshoe Eddie Valiant catches Acme playing pattycake with Roger's wife. Thanks to studio boss R.K. Maroon, we learn that Acme's dalliance with Jessica was set up by him in order to blackmail Acme into selling Toontown, with Acme's murder and Roger's implication in it being unintended consequences. However, when Maroon is murdered by an unseen assailant, identified by Jessica Rabbit as none other than Judge Doom, the sinister lawman charged with bringing Roger to justice, Eddie uncovers Doom's dastardly plot to buy up the LA public transit system and wipe Toontown off the map with his patented dip, so he can invest in the construction of a freeway that will cut through the prime real estate. Needing Acme out of the way and a patsy to take the fall, Doom tries to pin the murder on the hapless Roger. In short, he framed Roger Rabbit. So, what did we think of Judge Doom's scheme?
First of all, Christopher Lloyd was terrifying as Judge Doom.
He's very good.
Just a great, great villain.
Very unsettling.
You forget
Yeah.
he's so iconic as Doc Brown. You kind of forget how versatile he is.
Yeah, and Fester.
Yeah.
That's another completely different character that he
Yeah.
nails.
Cuckoo's Nest as well.
Yeah.
He's great. But for the plot itself, 8 florets of broccoli.
Very nice.
I thought it was clever. There was a lot of moving parts that kind of all come together towards the end, and you realise how complex the plan was. It was dark. It was dastardly. It was 8 florets of broccoli fresh.
Well, I don't have a rating system, but yeah, I'd say it was a really good plot as well. I liked the way that it would have carried off quite seamlessly, really, apart from the intervention of Eddie Valiant, who is probably the most unlikely character in the movie to defend the prime suspect. So yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, I mean it's very holistic, isn't it? It seems like Judge Doom has thought of every eventuality, everything that needs to be taken care of to make his plan come off. The only fly in the ointment is Eddie Valiant and
the will, right?
Yeah, and the will. For me, it's one of the best plans that we have had. I'm in agreement with Mr. Steinson.
What is funny about that as well is that Judge Doom, his character is quite unhinged, and his goons, the weasels, they're all completely unhinged, but they pull off this amazingly complex and sinister plot. It's kind of really suits the movie. It's
I really
fun.
like the Chekhov's gun device of him telling them right at the start of the film, one day they're going to laugh themselves to death, and of course they do.
Yeah.
And then when Eddie Valiant finally realizes then they do a little ping. And,
Yeah.
as well, that's great.
Speaking of funny sound effects, I forgot to say earlier, but there's a booby wobble sound effect when Jessica bumps into Valiant,
Yes.
which is just hilarious.
And they animated her boobs to go the opposite way, don't they? Because apparently when a woman walks, they go down, up, but hers go up, down to accentuate the movement. So
That's
that was.
right. Said apparently like you've never seen boobs.
When I go out today and I'm staring at women's boobs walking along the pavement, I'll never look at them the same way ever again.
Just if you get caught, just say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was just thinking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit."
I was just thinking of Jessica Rabbit.
Did you know that when they animated it?
And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, here, let me show you how they work."
Oh my goodness. That's probably how we'll transition into the music there, I think. This is the part of the show where our panel of peril compete for the title of this week's Most Diabolical, and with it, the honour of choosing next week's movie and hosting the show. Judge Doom wanted to get away with bumping off Toontown owner Marvin Acme, so he could wash the whole thing away to make way for his freeway, but the plan was unsuccessful. Ben, what would you have done differently?
Murdering Marvin Acme was a big mistake. It's much easier to change a man's mind when he's still alive. That's just science. So what I'd do is I'd get Acme to the negotiation table. Of course, he would never sell Toontown to me, so I'd need to engage the services of someone more persuasive than I. The effervescent Jessica Rabbit. Wait a minute! She'd never help you in a million years! I hear you cry. That's why, first, I would kidnap Roger Rabbit. My goons would wait for him after he finishes filming on set. They would approach him saying something like, Miss Jessica's sent a car for you. She's waiting at the Ink and Paint Club. The mere mention of his wife's name would be enough to fool that foolish rabbit. With Roger as my hostage, I'd force Jessica to choose between helping me convince Acme to sell Toontown or watching her beloved get dipped. After a few steamy rounds of pattycake, Acme would be putty in my hands. The deal would be done in seconds, and I would pave cartoony paradise to put up a freeway lined with several parking lots. And the icing on the cake? Enamored by my conviction and passion for progress, Jessica would get Stockholm Syndrome or something, ditch the rabbit, and we'd live happily ever after.
Okay, so do you think there's a danger that Jessica might go to the cops or to Valiant and Valiant?
Yeah, she'd know. Going to Valiant, going to the cops is going to end up with Roger getting dipped.
I mean, it's going to be hard to top. It's pretty solid.
Apart from Jessica's unwavering dedication to her husband.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what's going to make her do what I say, because otherwise he's going to get dipped.
Would you double dip?
I'll dip her. In fact, I'm going to dip him anyway. She doesn't know that. Don't tell her. I'm going to dip her, and I'm going to dip him anyway, regardless. And then me and Jessica.
That's all you wrote this plan for, just so you could get your unearthly pleasures.
My greasy mitts. My greasy mitts on her physics-defying breasts.
Yeah, well, a man can dream.
Okay, Adam, let's hear from you next, please.
Post-war America was booming, and capitalism was in full swing. To keep America on top, it has to keep growing. Building a new large freeway, or motorway, as we call it in the UK, will be the arteries of new economic lifeblood to the US. Standing in the way is Toontown, a small community of entertaining beings, but nevertheless flies in the capitalist ointment. How to solve this problem? Well, Doom would seek help from a higher power, namely US Senator Joseph McCarthy. Yes, all those living in Toontown and those that protect them are anti-American, anti-capitalist, and subverting the economic future of the US. You've guessed it, folks. Toons are commies! Doom, McCarthy and cohorts would gradually turn public opinion against Toontown in a series of congressional and Senate hearings abetted by a number of turncoat toons who are good American citizens. Maybe Tasmanian Devil grasses up Bugs Bunny, albeit in a totally incoherent way, like McCarthyism itself. Point being, public opinion is turned against the Toons and Toontown, and they are removed from their home in order to make way for progress and the unstoppable march of capitalism.
Is Mickey Mouse really a communist? He's the most capitalist of all of them, surely.
He's in deep cover of being a communist. Because he's like the American hero. He's the person you least suspect, but he's the most like communist of them all.
Oh, little do those fuckers know, I'm a fucking commie. That's why my pants are red.
That's it, exactly.
Actually, if you read early Mickey Mouse comic strips and watch the animated Mickey Mouse cartoon on Disney Plus, Mickey, Goofy, and Donald are actually bums who go around stealing stuff all the time. And like there's a brilliant episode where they break into a guy's house to use his pool. So Mickey was always meant to be like a poor guy, and he, comes across what he can. So I think that's believable that he could be a communist. I'm just thinking though, this movie's set in 1947, and McCarthy only became senator in 47. I don't think McCarthyism, as we know it, started in earnest until 1950.
Late 40s and early 50s, and then it fizzled out by about 55.
But I like it.
There's no timeline.
Yeah,
you can
it.
do it later.
That's a good point. There's no timeline.
But if you want to change public opinion, you're going to need some good propaganda. Could you give me a taster?
I don't know.
What would your slogan be?
Toons are commies.
It's to the point.
I'm convinced.
If you've eaten a carrot, you're basically eating the food of commies, because Bunny is a commie.
Yeah, again, Bugs Bunny, he doesn't appear to be employed.
No.
He tunnels around, stealing carrots where he can.
Taking the wrong turn at Albuquerque.
He's a freeloader. He picks on American citizens who like guns, like Yosemite Sam and
Elmer Fudd.
Mm-hmm. All right, lovely. Okay, so Gareth, can you top that?
Well, now, well. Yes, indeed. Indeed, yes. Here we go. Dip. The very name strikes fear into the hearts of toons. Cool. Did someone just walk over my fucking grave? Nasty stuff. But stomach churning though the very thought of dip might be, there's one name that makes those smoky barrels of goo pale in comparison. That name is David Zaslav. If you want to get rid of a bunch of fully animated toons, the new CEO of Warner Brothers is your man. He can be prized away for the right figure, I'm sure. He's a man of figures after all. New Scooby-Doo movie? Don't want it, thanks. Throw it in the bin. New Bruce Timm animated Batman series? Get the fuck out of here, douchebag. Infinity Train, Uncle Grandpa, Summer Camp Island, OK KO, Let's Be Heroes, so long, suckers. The man is a spree killer of toons of the highest order, and so if I'm Judge Doom, the first thing I'm doing when the money comes through for the new road is to get on the blower, or old dog and bone if you prefer, and have a word in Zaslav's ear, or shell-like if you prefer. Donald Duck, you can do one, mate, in the shredder with you. Crispy duck pancakes with plum sauce for tea tonight, cheers. Mickey Mouse, you must be taking the mickey if you think he's going to survive this literal axe that Zaslav holds over his head. And this is no Sorcerer's Apprentice type deal either. He'll be bubble and squeak for the main course. And who can be pudding? I don't know, is there a cartoon moose in there somewhere? Chocolate Moose? I'm saying there is, prove me wrong.
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah, okay, Bullwinkle. He can be Chocolate Moose for pudding. Once Zaslav has wreaked havoc in Toontown, making literal mincemeat of the characters, Doom will be free to lay his beautiful tarmac safe in the knowledge that he's hired a real professional to do his dirty work. When you need toons gone and gone permanently, the only thing to do is call David Zaslav.
That checks out. He is killing animation over at Warner Brothers Discovery. One question I do have, though, is how old was David Zaslav in 1947?
Well, I believe...
Minus 13?
I believe he's 112 now. So...
Vampire.
So that would make him, what, in his 40s?
It's like he's like an omnipotent power even before he was born. His like aura is already seeping out into the world and destroying
Satan.
things. I can see where you're coming from with that one.
Some absolutely diabolical schemes there, but there can be only one winner. This week's most diabolical and host of next week's show is, I can't believe I'm saying this again, it's Adam.
Wow.
Commie Toons really swung it for me.
Okie dokie.
That's a quote.
Commie Toons.
Really swung it for me.
I believe in my heart that Mickey, Goofy, Bugs, and Pals are at heart communists. So I didn't need any propaganda to further that. The propaganda exists, and it's all of the Disney comic strips that show that to be true.
Okay, thank you.
So, Adam, what movie do you have picked for us next?
In my victory speech, I would like to give a significant nod to Gareth's plan and echo his thoughts.
Needless dig at Ben there for no reason.
I feel slighted.
Well, just like earlier on WhatsApp, Turn, you can shove it up your ass.
Okay, so next week.
Just a word of warning: if it's a Star Trek film, I'm quitting.
Oh no!
Ditto.
Next week we will be dissecting Martin Scorsese classic, The Departed.
Oh, The Departed. Wicked
pisser.
Bon appetit.
Is that a remake of the
Infernal Affairs?
Yeah. Okay.
That about wraps it up for this week's episode. Thank you for listening, and if you like what you heard, please subscribe, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you might get your podcasts from. It would also help to tell your friends in person and on social media, help spread the word. Listening to the pod regularly has been shown to significantly increase the chances of your favourite TV show not getting cancelled / returning. To catch all the latest from the Diabolical podcast, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at DiabolicalPod and on Facebook at Diabolical. Don't forget to join us next week. We'll be diving into the murky world of 2006's The Departed. Until next time, remember, a laugh can be a very powerful thing. Why, sometimes in life, it's the only weapon we have.